Military rescues abducted Yobe schoolgirls as President Buhari sends 3 ministers on fact-finding mission to the school.
In direct contact with the military and the police, and as soon as we get any information, we'll let you know.
Top police officers brainstorm on illicit trade in small arms and light weapons.
Federal Executive Council awards multi-billion-dollar contracts for rail and road construction.
A new contract from Ibadan to Kaduna. You know, earlier they had awarded from Kaduna to Kano.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on the maiden Nigeria International Petroleum Summit.
Well, Nigeria has been hosting the maiden edition of the Nigeria International Petroleum Summit here in the nation's capital. And of course, it's a summit where the upstream and the midstream and the downstream oil and gas exports from around the world are assembling in the country to discuss opportunities that avail in the sector.
That's right, Rhoda. Nigeria obviously is now positioning herself to be a foremost oil and gas investment destination. Now, this is also evident in the reforms taking place in the sector, as well as improved engagement with host communities, which is giving investors more confidence.
Well, the 5-day International Petroleum Summit has created the perfect platform for the world to meet Nigeria's oil and gas industry players, explore innovations and technologies covering every aspect of the upstream, downstream, midstream subsector of the industry.
Now, given the fact that Nigeria's gas reserves have remained largely unexplored, the country is expected to make a shift towards becoming a major producer and exporter of gas. And those who know say there is no better platform to market that idea than at a summit such as this.
Well, Kingsley, I don't think anyone is disappointed. The turnout and the level of engagement as expressed by experts is worth the while. The theme is leading Africa's response to the global oil and gas challenges, has vividly captured the essence of the summit, and many believe the oil and gas sector will not be the same again on the continent after this conference.
That's right. Now, government reforms involving transparency as well as opening up the space for strategic funding and investments in the sector are also said to encourage synergy as well as expand investment opportunities into the African oil industry. In addition, it will attract engineering and technological breakthroughs.
Well, the Nigerian government made it clear that the country is open for private sector investment and the downstream sector, and is pursuing vigorously the program for the rehabilitation of existing refineries to enhance the capacity to supply locally refined products to Nigeria and West Africa.
Now, President Muhammadu Buhari was represented at the opening by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. And the President said that the summit had the full backing of government as it represented the country's contribution to the quest for a sustainable platform for global oil industry players to come to Africa, well, of course, to quest for oil.
Well, the Secretary of the OPEC, and that's Mohammed Sanusi Barkindo, corroborates that statement, and he said that the Nigeria International Petroleum Summit is coming at a critical time where the global crude oil price was emerging from a downturn, emphasizing the need for African petroleum producers to partner effectively in achieving a robust sector.
That's right. So we pop the question again, rhetorically, if you like. So what is the summit all about, and how can it impact on the sector in Nigeria in particular, and largely on the African continent? And perhaps why is it taking the country this long to hold a summit of this significance, if indeed it is important to the development of the country's oil and gas sector? And when is Nigeria likely to start harnessing the benefits of the summit?
Of course, these are some of the questions our guest on the program this morning shall try to provide answers to on Good Morning Nigeria today. I'm Rhoda Anonam, welcoming you to the program, and we we are live on Africa's largest television network, the NTA. Well, Kingsley, I tell you, the 5-day summit has been one of importance, and it's coming at a very, very important time, you know, in the country where we're trying to diversify also, and also to see how the petroleum products or the oil and gas sector can really be more beneficial to us than it has been.
That's right. It's also coming at a time where you're having many more African countries now join the oil club, as it were. These are issues our guests shall be taking a look at in our discussion segment. My name is Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Rhoda and also welcome you to today's edition of the program, in the course of which we shall have our regular complementary segments, and these are newspaper review, business, foreign, and others. In the meantime, we join our colleague for the morning news, and she is Laure Bala Hassan. Hi, Laure.
Hello, Kingsley and Rhoda. Good morning and a warm welcome to the news. U.S. state government has announced that some of the girls at the Government Girls Science Technical College, Dapchi, whose school was attacked by Boko Haram terrorists last Monday, have been rescued by the Nigerian army. The rescued girls are not in custody of the Nigerian army. Governor Ibrahim Gaidam, who expressed gratitude to the Nigerian army officers involved in the operation, says he is monitoring the situation closely and will make a statement in due course. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the Ministers of Defense, Foreign Affairs, as well as Information and Culture to proceed to Dapchi community in Yobe State immediately on a fact-finding mission in respect of the reported abduction of schoolgirls by Boko Haram. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, while briefing journalists, said the president is seriously worried over the development coming at a time when the Boko Haram chapter is almost becoming history.
The president has directed the military and other security agencies to take immediate charge and control and inform him of developments. The president is in direct contact with the military and the police, and as soon as we get any information, we'll let you know. But like I said, Minister of Defense, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and myself will be on our way to Dapchi to take control of the situation and also get a first-hand information as what is happening.
And in furtherance of its commitment towards addressing the nation's critical infrastructure deficit, the federal government has awarded a $6.7 billion contract for the construction of a standard gauge rail line linking Ibadan to Kaduna. Also approved is the reconstruction of the Bill Clinton Road linking Umaru Yar'Adua Expressway to Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport. The Federal Executive Council gave the approval at its weekly meeting where some ministers were engaged on their scorecards.
City Water Board at 273.4 million naira towards purifying.
Also approved the award of a new contract from Ibadan to Kaduna. You know, earlier they had awarded from Kaduna to Kano. So the entire Ibadan to Kano as a stretch has been awarded. What was awarded today was Ibadan to Kaduna for $6.7 billion.
The second contract is for the reconstruction of the road called Bill Clinton Drive. And as part of our emphasis on upgrading infrastructure, we want to reconstruct the whole of that road, including the portion leading to the presidential wing at the sum of 1,942,400 naira.
And now to the National Assembly, where the Senate has passed for second reading several bills at Wednesday's plenary. National Assembly correspondent Dennis Adegunloye reports that among these is a bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of Nigeria Act 2006 to ensure transparency and accountability in operation of the bank. A bill for an act to repeal the Nigeria Press Council Act of 1992 as amended and to enact the Nigeria Press Council Act of 2008 passed also second reading.
The CBA Act to provide for greater efficiency, transparency, independency and accountability in the monetary policy environment.
I don't think we need to bother much by putting a bill to that effect.
The central bank of any country is a pivotal institution. that in almost in every country, it is sheltered from needless partisan oversight.
And still at the National Assembly, following the killings of 40 persons by unknown gunmen in Zamfara State last week, the House of Representatives has advised government to reinforce security in the state. This followed a motion of urgent national importance moved by Representative Abubakar Moriki from Zamfara State. The motion also called on the House to send a delegation to condole with the people of the state.
As the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, through the House Committee on NEMA, to package and send relief materials to the families of the victims of the recent banditry activity incidents in Birani and Mashema districts of Zulmi local government area of Zamfara State.
It is a very sad thing that happened in Zamfara, we must confess. But we must also note the fact that between December and death, almost or well over 2,000 people may have been killed in different parts of the country in different circumstances.
If all those that feel they are VIPs are given trucks of police, large number of police going around with so many people to the detriment of the common man, that he cannot have available police before him to protect him, I think we need to change this psyche.
The challenges posed to nations by illicit trade in small arms and light weapons and their indiscriminate use have continued to attract global attention. To this end, the Nigeria Police is using the Commissioner of Police and above to brainstorm on ways of curbing the menace in the country.
We must enforce the law against illegal possession of firearms. We must widen our enforcement to include locally made weapons, not classified as firearms.
I don't think there is any command in this country where this public armory has been constructed. So, and these are the issues I believe we can sit today to discuss with our commissioners of police the construction of these public armories that will be meant to store illegal arms and ammunition from various citizens in this country.
Meanwhile, Yobe State Police Command says investigations are ongoing on the situation of some students that were not seen during the head count after the attack on Government Girls Science and Technical College, Dapchi. Commissioner of Police Sumonu Adeyemi Abdulmalik, in an interview with NTA News, said out of 926 registered students before the attack, 850 students were seen during the head counts.
Where quite all right food items were carted away from their kitchen and everywhere. However, I want to ascertain if there are any missing persons. As I'm talking to you at this moment, we've not gotten any report of deaths or unfound children. However, I have dispatched my EOD to the school, the PMF, the CTU, and the area commander of KDAM is on ground and with the military, trying to take census and to comb the general area.
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Rhoda and Kingsley after this break. Good morning.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem frontally through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
reorganized, trained, and fully equipped. We are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime. We bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. Every day, 16,000 children under the ages of 5 and thousands of adults die from infectious diseases. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily. In unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilet, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 Cap Full for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid, to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol Sure. Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
Sore throats, it's often caused by bacteria and viruses. Feels like they're having a party. You need Strepsils. It soothes the pain, plus it fights the germs with 2 germ-killing actives. Double power in 1 lozenge. Bye-bye sore throat. Take Strepsils. Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. Nurofen Express works at the source of pain. Fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
Helen! Your kitchen gets 10 out of 10. Thank you. This also gets a 10. Should we see the toilet now? Sure. This gets just 1.
It is clean.
But not perfect 10.
Better than my detergent and bleach? Impossible.
Challenge? Try the new Apic 10X. Compared to bleach and detergent, Apic sticker formulation removes yellow stains times better, giving you a sparkling clean toilet.
Wow.
Now you also take that
Apic 10X challenge.
Also available in 200 ml pack.
Dettol team is visiting schools to teach children how to protect themselves from diseases. Do you know how we get illnesses like diarrhea, cough, and cold? No! They are spread through germs, which are everywhere. You collect germs that cause diseases. You pick up germs from any surface, like when you don't wash your hands after going to the toilet, while playing. And then you can get sick because of germs. That's why you need to fight germs to stay healthy by washing your hands and taking your bath with Dettol soap to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Wash, wash, wash your hands. What you have to do is bath, bath, bath yourself. Dettol soap every day. Wash, wash, wash your hands.
Right now it's time for us to take some business news, and with just about 5 weeks to the deadline for compliance, Nigeria has netted some 20 billion naira out of the projected 305 billion naira under the Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme. Plus, in 2017, the 3 tiers of government shared some 6 trillion naira in revenue allocation. Let's join our correspondent, Viviane Depefo, for details of the stories.
A warm welcome to the Business News segment. The Federation Allocation Committee, FAC, disbursed a total sum of 6.418 trillion naira in 2017. This shows an increase of 25.8% and 6.8% when compared to total disbursements of 5 trillion naira and 6 trillion naira in 2016 and 2015. A breakdown of the amount disbursed in 2017 shows that the federal government received more than 2 trillion naira, the 36 states 1 trillion naira, while the 774 local governments shared 1 trillion naira. A state-by-state breakdown of the allocations in 2017 shows that Akwa Ibom State received the highest share of 143.6 billion naira, followed by Rivers State with 119.6 billion naira. Delta State came third with a total allocation of 111 billion naira, while Bayelsa State got 105 billion naira to take the fourth position. On the other hand, Osun State received 10 billion naira to take the lowest position of FAC within the year under review. The Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, in its latest quarterly review, attributed the revenue increase in 2017 to rising oil prices, improved oil production, and greater attention towards development of non-oil revenue sector. Meanwhile, the Federal Inland Revenue Service says so far, Nigeria has collected 20 billion naira out of the target 305 billion naira from Voluntary Asset Income Declaration Scheme, VADES. The chairman of FIRS, Babatunde Fowler, who disclosed this in Lagos, believes that VADES presents an opportunity for Nigeria to improve and widen its tax net and also make progress in its tax to GDP ratio. VADES is a 9-month federal government window from July 2017 to March 31st, 2018, given to taxpayers to regularize their tax status relating to 2011 to 2016 tax period. The Bureau of Public Enterprises has privatized 142 enterprises from inception to date. The Director General of the agency, Alex Oko, who received the House of Representatives Committee on Privatization, said out of this number, 63% are doing well, while the remaining 37% are not doing well, owing to prevailing business environment, which forced many businesses to close down. And the equities market closed positive Wednesday with a 0.02% increase over the previous session. Up next is a pictorial summary of closing figures on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. With business news, I am Vivian Idekbefo. Thanks for being there.
Vivian Idekbefo, thank you for the business news update. Time now for us to review our newspapers this morning.
All right, newspaper reviewer Bayo Atoyebe is right here with us in the studios for today's review session. Bayo, good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning.
Good morning, Bayo.
And good morning, Nigeria.
Yeah, Bayo, you'll recall yesterday when we were doing the newspaper review, we had only a few set of newspapers to take a look at. And unfortunately, the lead stories for those papers focused on what transpired in Kaduna with regard to the demolition of the Secretariat of Parallel APC,
Secretariat.
faction in the state. But other papers, of course, dealt with the story. We didn't have them for our review.
Yes,
dealt with the story from out of Yobe with regard to the storming of the school premises by some terrorists. So we're having follow-up stories now.
Yes, they are running stories now.
Yes.
And
yes.
Of course, just as you said, those are the stories trending on some of the dailies that we have this morning.
Okay.
Let's begin with the New Telegraph. On the New Telegraph, the lead story, of course, it's Boko Haram attack on Yobe School. Army rescues abducted girls. Boko Haram attack on Yobe School. Army rescues abducted girls with riders there. Security agencies comb bushes, villages for 54 missing others. Yobe government, terrorists kidnapped our girls. And finally, Buhari orders military intervention. PDP, Saraki condemns attack. That's the list story for the New Telegraph, and it's on page 2 of the paper. Now, the Authority newspaper, same story. Boko Haram attack, Buhari deploys troops to Yobe. 48 students have returned, says Yobe government. We are shocked, disturbed, PDP. Speak up, Ezekwesili urges Buhari, and that's the lead story for the Authority newspaper. All right,
that's right. That's follow-up story by it's also the lead for the Punch, and it comes with a kicker: Boko Haram attack. 48 schoolgirls found and 46 still missing, says Yobe government. With the rider, Buhari sends 3 ministers to Yobe. Details of the story can be found on page 7. Now, that story with regard to the incident in Yobe is also right there at the foot of the front page of the Leadership newspaper. And it says President Buhari gives marching orders on missing Yobe students.
Well, it's very worrying because yesterday the story broke that soldiers had invaded Sambisa Forest, and insurgents who were fleeing had attacked a government girls' technical college at Dapchi. Dapchi is 100 kilometers away from the headquarters of Yobe State, the Damaturu. Now, while they invaded the school, it was learned that the teachers gathered some of the students that were available and gradually ushered them away into some bushes so that they could be in safe place. The Commissioner of Police for Yobe State, Sumonu Abdul Malik, says that there are 926 registered students in the school, and when they did a head count, they found 850 students. So they had 76 students to account for. However, the Commissioner of Education for Yobe State, Mohammed Lamin, says that 48 schoolgirls have been found and 46 are still missing. Another report had it that the officers of the Nigerian army were able to rescue about 50 points. Now, in a stampede, in this kind of situation like this, the information are always sketchy. Yeah. But by the end of today, they will be able to piece together the actual information. The governor of Yobe State, Ibrahim Gaidam, is due to address the state, and we will know the correct position of situation. Yeah, but the students praised their teachers who ushered them into hiding. Also, some Fulani settlements have announced that they have discovered some girls who they are now trying to help bring back to the school. Unfortunately, while the girls were running, one of the girls suffered a snake bite, another broke, I think, the legs, but I think they are all right and have been treated. Yeah,
there's a very unfortunate incident that tells us, how somewhat perilous some of the locations still are with regard to the last kicks of Boko Haram terrorists.
It's quite traumatic because one of the girls even remarked that I will not return to that school except Buratai is the one who is guarding the school. That is the extent of desperation.
Yeah, but of course, the military and the other security agencies are up to speed now in trying to deal with the aftermath, and then, of course, ensure that there are no such. There's a limit to what to the extent that you can police every inch of a territory. Where everybody knows that. Let's take some other headlines.
And let's go to just above the nameplate of New Telegraph. It says ROMAFA, that's MDA, states, local governments owe 168 billion naira tax liability. That's above the nameplate. And just at the bottom of the paper, there's a story there. It says senators in trouble over missing 70 million naira. Sani says monkeys carted away lawmakers' millions. That's a story that's on page 3 of the New Telegraph bio.
Yeah, there's also the story. There are also matters, of course, arising from the demolition that took place in Kaduna. That's the lead for People's Daily, and it says with a kicker, demolition. Go to court if you want. El-Rufai Des Hunkuyi. That story continues in greater detail on page 5. And then you also have it on the Punch. That's above the nameplate. It says, above the nameplate of the Punch, Senator alleges fresh plot by Kaduna government to demolish his home. Go to court, as the rider, Kaduna government spokesman tells Senator. Details of that story can be found on page 10. Another running copy is one of the 2 earpieces beside the name flag of the Punch. It says, Dana plane damaged navigational equipment at Port Harcourt Airport. And that story is attributed, of course, to the federal government. Now, another story that is there on the front pages of the papers is above the nameplate by way of a headline. It says, Global Evangelist Billy Graham dies at 99. That's on page 15. And that story is also the second lead for the Leadership newspaper. Immediately below the nameplate of Leadership, it says, Evangelist Billy Graham dies at 99.
It's also running on the Authority newspaper. It's a Trump, Bush, Obama, others mourn Billy Graham. And the story you read earlier is also there above the nameplates. It's on page 11 of the Authority. It says, demolish Kaduna APC Secretariat. Go to court, Obasani tells Senator Hunkuyi. Fire.
Yes, the American televangelist Billy Graham has been ill since 2011. He was reported to have suffered from lung cancer and I think Parkinson's disease. He passed on yesterday at age 99. Talking about the running story about Kaduna, the advisor to Kaduna State Governor on Intergovernmental Affairs, Ubasani, says that demolition of the property at Sambo Road was done in accordance with the law. And he says that for converting its residential building to commercial use, it was a grand purpose for losing the right of certificate of occupancy. Meanwhile, like Kingsley read earlier on, Senator Suleiman Hunkuyi has also alerted that he has been served another notice. This notice is demanding that he pays a ground rent of a property at Inuawada Road that is supposed to be his residence that has been outstanding. He is to pay an amount of about 31.4 million naira, and he has 30 days within which to do this.
All right, but as you said, that's a running story. And yesterday, if you recall, when we were discussing the subject matter, yes, failure to pay ground rent is not the
consequence is not demolition.
The consequence, rather, for failure to pay ground rent shouldn't be demolition of property. Rather, it's forfeiture, and then, of course, the government then sells the property and recovers its own ground rent, and whatever is left with the balance is then given to the owner of the former owner of the property.
And that's what the spokesman is saying. He says it's done within the law. Well, that will be tested. I think those who are affected will go there. But the other the running story also.
Bulldozers are having some good time now in Kaduna.
The other running story, however, is in the Senate. The senator who had complained about the amendment of the Electoral Act has apologized because his attention was drawn that what he said was offensive to the Senate. You recall that a senator who had also raised alarm that the subject of an imported car and a forged certificate be inquired was suspended for even 6 months. So there is a threat of suspension pending. Also, the other story Rhoda read about Senator Adam Abdullahi, you recall, is one of the 10 senators who walked out of the Senate. He's also, his suspension, his position as chairman, Northern Senators Forum has been changed. It's now Senator Wamako. The PRO for the senators, Northern Senators, Dino Melai, announced it.
All right,
we have the editorial from Blueprint this morning, and it's on the alarming rate of child labor in Nigeria. But just before I take that editorial, apparently there is a meeting of the Council of State scheduled for today. That you get that from the rider to the headline, the lead headline for Leadership newspaper. Alarming rate of child labor in Nigeria. The editorial says in part that 15 years after the Child Rights Act became operational, as well as other legislative and administrative mechanisms aimed at eliminating child labor, the menace still exists.
Yes, the child right was passed in the year 2003, and very few states have adopted it. There is a contention that some clauses in the Child Right Act is in conflict with certain culture or tradition of our people. But be that as it may, the concern is that children between the age of 5 and 17 should not be subjected to what has been described as mentally, physical, social, and morally challenging kind of job. It's a big problem, particularly those that are used as domestic servants.
You're right, Bayo. Indeed, it's a big problem, and we hope that something is done about it. That statistics is quite high. Really, really high. 50.8%. All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. Bayo, thank you so much for coming this morning.
Thank you for
God
having me.
willing, we'll see you again tomorrow morning. All right, we'll take a short break now, and when we return, our item for discussion this morning, it's on the maiden edition of the Nigeria International Petroleum Summit that's holding in Abuja. We'll take a look at the oil and gas sector and, of course, the challenges. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
I was distressed to notice that some of the comments, especially in the social media, have crossed our national red lines by daring to question our collective existence as a nation. This is a step too far.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Do you say what you know for sure to be true?
Do you know that Abuja is planning to arrest all these girls wearing weave-on and human hair?
Why spread falsehood, half-truths and lies just to make yourself relevant and to feel important?
Did you read last week's paper?
No.
You read?
No, I'm not reading a newspaper.
That is the problem. My people suffer for lack of knowledge.
People are misled by your fabricated stories and lies.
You've killed me, so now my memorial service now going to happen. Oh, God. Oh, God.
Unfortunately, these spinners of yarns and story people dwell among us and abuse us via our ears.
How does he get his information?
The cuckoo sends in the town where me and know they get information.
Alas, tune into your rip-cracking comedy this week as we bring you the episode titled Story People.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
The largest data network, Glow Unlimited.
Makes a Niger mom powerful.
I encourage my kids to learn new things, and if they get hurt, I rely on the power of my Dettol's One Capful to fight germs.
My family needs protection from germs. I use the power of Dettol's One Capful to disinfect surfaces and clothes.
I trust the power of Dettol's One Capful for bathing. The power of Dettol's One Capful protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Be a powerful Niger mom with Dettol. Be 100% sure.
Use Dettol Skin Jelly, which protects against germs for a healthy, smooth skin every day.
They've already done us proud. Nobody will ever imagine that in any Winter Olympics, there'll be Nigerians there. And then for the very first time, I'm really proud of them, and I believe strongly that that's the beginning of new things that's happening in sports. And I believe strongly that in the next 2 weeks, we should be hearing something that we'll be all be proud of. They are our girls, and you know, I'm rooting for them.
Here we go, Stevie, let's go!
You are watching the Kwese Free Sports, UHF 32, for the fan.
All right, you're welcome back. But if you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria, and we are reaching you live from our Abuja headquarters studios as the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, as a prompt for our discussion this morning, let's join our correspondent for a backgrounder.
In the last 2.5 years, the federal government has been taking pragmatic measures towards moving the country to a greater height for all-round development. Worthy of note is the nation's effort at stabilizing the economy through efforts leading to exit from recession, fiscal policies with massive infrastructure development, friendly monetary and exchange rate policies easing the way of doing businesses, financial prudence, and above all, the Economic Recovery Growth Plan. All this further strengthen the country's revenue base and increase its competitiveness in the global arena. To consolidate on these and open new vista for direct foreign investment, the Made in Nigeria International Petroleum Summit is organized to provide a platform for the world to meet the nation's oil and gas industry players. As Africa's largest and most influential oil producer, Nigeria has continued to play a leading role in the global energy space. An event such as this creates another outlet for Nigeria to lead the way in Africa's response to the various challenges facing the oil and gas industry. The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Dr. Ibe Kachiku, says Nigeria will benefit from the summit as it highlights the nation's long history of oil and gas production, substantial reserves, and status as a leading global player in the sector. Experts equally agreed that with ongoing reforms in the sector and improved engagement as showcased in the 4-day event, Nigeria is positioning herself to be the foremost oil and gas investment destination. Nigeria has assured the international community of its commitment to responding to developments in the oil and gas industry to ensure efficiency. President Muhammadu Buhari, in a message to the event through the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, says the summit is in line with the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan of the present administration. What then is the significance of the summit to Nigeria? How would such gathering impact on Nigeria's economy? Will the summit prepare Nigeria to the next level in the oil and gas sector? These are some of the issues guests will be discussing shortly on the program.
All right, thank you very much, Salihu Abdullahi, there for that background report. Now we have 3 guests with us here in the Abuja studios, as well as a guest joining us from one of our network centers. First, we'd like to welcome at this time Engineer Bello Rabiu. He's the Chief Executive Officer upstream of the NNPC. Engineer Rabiu, pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, and then also here with us in the Abuja studios is Engineer Simbi Wabote. He is the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board. Engineer Wabote, pleasure to have you on the program.
And also it's our pleasure to welcome to our studios this morning Engineer Ephraim Ihene Chukwu of Fonagoro. He's the Chairman CEO of Tesco Nigeria Limited. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
And also we have at our Lagos studio Engineer Babajide Akinremi Soyode. He is the Chairman Pro Data Management Company and the Managing Director of Free Zone Planner Fabrication Company. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. Gentlemen, let's begin this discussion with Engineer Rabiu Bello. Engineer Rabiu Bello, of course, high-level discussions have been going on, presentations have been made, and of course there have been deliberations in the past 4 days at the ongoing maiden edition of the Nigerian International Petroleum Summit. I'd like to know from you, how has it been?
I think I can say it was a very successful summit. Being the first time we're gathering these international players in oil and gas, we can say we have already achieved our objective. We started with the objective of getting 3 things. One, to connect the global oil and gas players with Nigerian players. That we believe has happened because a lot of countries send their delegates, especially African countries, to allow us to have collaboration and efforts to put together a continent that should actually be seen also on the global oil and gas map. The second objective, which I think also had been significantly achieved, is the issue of connecting the oil and gas players with policymakers in Nigeria as well. The Nigerian policymakers have opportunity to meet the global players, understand what is going on globally, and also put our systems and processes in place to ensure that we connect with the world as well. Third, is the exhibition part of it. We have actually gotten opportunity for exhibitors to come and show the new technologies, new processes that enhance the effective development of oil and gas globally. And that has allowed the Nigerian players to also key into that and allow us to understand what we need to do to correct the mistake of the past and strategize for African oil and gas players to actually key into the development of oil and gas globally. That, I think, had also been achieved.
All right. Thank you, Engineer Bello Rabio. Some questions to raise from what you've just indicated. But let's also get the views of Engineer Wabote on what has been playing out at this summit.
Thank you very much. Once again, thanks for having me. Just like Rabiu Bello said, I think he succinctly captured some of the objectives of this Nigerian International Petroleum Summit. I think one other thing to add from the local content perspective, it is often said that the oil and gas business itself is not an employer of so many people. And when you look at the contribution of oil and gas activities to GDP, it's even not comparable to what Nollywood brings in terms of GDP, getting people employed. But conferences like this also provides additional opportunity for Nigerians. You have exhibitors. You have hotels in Abuja, for instance, being occupied by international guests and local guests. And then you have some of the transportation businesses being enhanced because you have people coming in. So it has a significant spin-off effect in terms of impact on the economy. And also, I think, being the first that we want to organize, we're used to conferences perhaps in this country, but when you then create an international dimension, I'm sure for those who were there, you saw the number of ministers and delegates from sister African countries. Part of the strategy, in my view, for this conference is also to see how Nigeria begin to play a leading role in terms of driving local content within the sub-Saharan African region, as well as the Gulf of Guinea region. We've made substantial progress in our journey on local content development in the oil and gas sector, and most of these countries want to learn from us. They want to hear from us. So if we are able to organize an international conference of this nature and improve on it over years, it would then become the center of attraction in terms of oil and gas conference activities, where ideas are exchanged, technologies are also shared, and also capacity and capability are also exhibited to international audience. So I just wanted to add that bit in terms of the impact of this conference, just to piggyback on what Bello Rabia said.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Waboto. Let's bring in now Engineer Fonagoro. Of course, let's also get your take on what is the, as it were, first such summit that we're having in this country.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I think it's a very welcomed development. It has been ongoing. We have other conferences like that. And most importantly is the synergy of bringing mutual benefits to the local operators and the external vendors. So we have a situation where engineering is something that is dynamic. Technology is always on an improvement phase, continuously changing. So you have to keep to time. If you are stagnant, you miss the progress. And so it is a welcome development to have our fellow countrymen, our companies, tie into external happenings and connect with the relevant technology of our time. So it's very welcome development. And I see it as something that must be encouraged and continued. You know, it's kind of a training platform too for young engineers. When they go there, They collect, they tap into new technological learnings, and then it improves their operational ability when they go back to their base. So it's a continuous process which must be encouraged by all organizations in the country. Our neighbors, as he said, are learning from us too. But we still have a lot to go. We have to still have a lot improvement to make.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Ofonagoro. Let's go to our Lagos Network Center where we have Engineer Babajide Soyode. We have a lot, all our guests this morning are engineers. Of course, still we're talking about, I know we're talking about the oil and gas sector. What do you make of this maiden edition of Nigeria's International Petroleum Summit? What's your take on it?
Well, I was there for just half a day, Wednesday, and from what I learned, or my experience, it was quite useful. At least some of the problems confronting Nigeria were highlighted. I think we have been having a lot of conferences on oil and gas over the years. I think this one was beginning to zero in on our problems. From that regard, it was quite useful.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Soyode. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. Back to our studios, Engineer Bello Rabiu. The first question, of course, that will arise from saying, okay, after the foundational statements that you have all made, will be this. It's 60 years this year since Nigeria began exploitation of oil and gas, and therefore export in commercial quantities since 1958. Why are we just waking up now to organize a maiden international summit when indeed since that period we've also had the IOCs, that's to say the international oil corporations in our environment?
Thank you very much. And I think we can't say this is the first time we're having an international summit in oil and gas, but this is the first time it is changing the dynamics to focus on what we really needed to do. We have been having a lot of international conferences, and sometimes we go out because international conference means getting every nation to participate. If you remember, for many years we have been going for oil and gas summits, and in terms of the upstream business, there's something we call the OTC taking place every year, first week of May in Houston. In fact, why this summit happened this year was because of the total number of people we saw in Houston. The Honorable Minister of State Petroleum was there last year, and he saw so many Nigerians going in there as participants. And he said, if we can gather this type of people, and mainly for Nigeria, why don't you have the same thing in Nigeria? Because that will have better impact on the economy. It will have more participation and more connection with our own sister countries in Africa, because not everybody has the opportunity to go to Houston. But if a lot of people are going into Houston just to attend the Offshore Technology Conference, why don't you do the same thing in Nigeria? And that was the reason why we're doing it, because we are looking at it as part of the problems of going out of recession. So you can see that it was not that Nigerians don't participate in international conferences or Nigeria don't participate, but actually we're participating but outside the country.
I'm sorry, Engineer Rabiu. I mean, it was always a notorious fact that Nigerian participants at those international conferences, whether in the former Soviet Union or more regularly in Houston, we always probably had the largest delegation. Yeah. But following from the objectives of this particular summit, as you indicated, 3 of them, connect global players and Nigerian players, connect global players and Nigerian policymakers, and also create an opportunity for exhibition. That's why I'm asking the question, why did it appear so difficult? I mean, it's never too late, somebody might say, for us, for 60 years, to come to the realization that we needed to play at home in terms of, having the global players, join us. Perhaps we can get Engineer Wabote's own take on this.
Indeed, it's a question that we must ask. There are so many questions to be asked in terms of how we have developed in the oil and gas sector. It's not just this conference, but I think one dimension I want to add is that in the past 10 years, past 10 years ago, if you look at the map of Africa, in terms of countries that are producing oil, you probably only talk in West Africa, you probably talk about probably Cameroon, Gabon, if you go down a bit, and then maybe Equatorial Guinea as such. But today, if you take that map of Africa and you look at it, it is that you might have about 20 or 30 countries currently producing oil and gas. So, like Rabiu said, we've been having conferences. But when we looked at that situation, you then say, how can we harness the African potential? How can we bring African countries together? Knowing fully well that we've been in this journey for 60 years, other African countries will want to learn from us by creating that international dimension. And part of the challenge we also had was this offshore technology conference. We always produce the highest number of delegates when it comes to, and then I make bold to say that 90% of those don't really go sit and understand the technical discussions that are happening there. So if you could have conference tourism, as it were, why can't you harness that potential in Africa to have an African conference tourism? I think that was the main thrust of doing this. But we've been having various oil and gas conferences in Nigeria, but we have not really harnessed the potential that we could get out of Africa. I think that's the reason why we are focusing on this.
Thank you very much, Engineer Wabote. I'd like Engineer Soyede to also speak to this issue that Kingsley has just raised. The largest petroleum producers in Africa and the 11th in the world. Why did it take us so long to bring industry players to Nigeria?
I think Kingsley has inadvertently raised a can of worms. I think he was saying that the reason people go to OTC is not for conference tourism or anything. They produce technology there, they see equipment, they make contracts and everything, they make contact. Even you see our governors going in there, they're prior to make contact. I think what Kingsley is saying is that we should be using the opportunity of that conference to promote local content more, to promote made in Africa technology. This is what we should be doing, not just bringing people to come. How much are they going to spend for us? How much are they going to spend? Simbe is doing a good job now, but we need to showcase him. We used to showcase what has come out of our universities, but we don't. We just go and talk shop again, as usual. Maybe because the governor or the minister said he wasn't happy, but it's fine. Why wasn't he happy? What was being gained there? Why can't we do the same thing in Nigeria? Kingsley, we don't make pin in Nigeria. We don't make valves in Nigeria. These are basic things we use in the oil and gas industry. 60 years after we found oil. So these are the issues that we need to be facing now. I am glad that this thing has taken place. Perhaps next year we'll be thinking, what must we show? I want to just come and talk. I rest my case for now.
All right.
Rhoda, I asked the question. I didn't make a comment, by the way. I mean, and then you had Bello, Engineer Rabiu. Yes, as well as Engineer Simbi Wabote responded. But let's also get the views of Engineer Fonagoro, with regard to this somewhat belated home-based international conference or summit.
Thank you. I think I will place that squarely on the fact that we're underdeveloped. You see...
To host a summit?
Yeah, pardon me?
Underdeveloped to host a summit?
Our industry, the petroleum industry, we are just coming of age. When we started, when the petroleum industry kicked off, 60 years ago, as you said, participation was limited to, in most of the core activities were not driven by Nigerians. It was expatriate-based. Now we have crop of engineers who have come of age. We have experts. We have technocrats. We have gone far now. And these people, another hindrance is we don't manufacture anything here.
So we're not manufacturing.
We are not manufacturing.
Yes.
But we have just started to do that. And we are coming of age gradually. We have people making gaskets, people making cladding materials, people making all kinds of paints, industrial paints, marine paints. All these things were not there before. We have people milling technical machine parts. In fact, we can do a lot of things. We can even build refineries now. But it will take some time before we can, if we can be empowered, the government can privatize and allow the private sector to take complete control of this industry, the oil and gas. Then we are on our way forward. Then we can make progress, and then we can invite people to and showcase what we are producing here. You see, I'm very encouraged with what I have seen in this country. From the time I came back in 1979 till now.
That's a long time ago.
That's a long time ago.
You came with the Second Republic?
That's a long time ago.
Well, let's pause here in the meantime. We'll come back to you.
Okay.
But there are some points that you have raised as well as the other guests. Before we get into some of the issues, probably we'll start from the back end, because as you indicated, one of the objectives has been to provide opportunities for exhibitors. So my question is going to the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Local Content and Development Board. Who are the exhibitors at this summit, and what is it that Nigeria is putting up for show in terms of its Nigerian content?
I think one of the areas, to be candid, perhaps in this conference we didn't quite get right, was mobilizing the potential that currently exists in the country to come and exhibit at this conference. I think that's part of the after-action review that we're going to look at, and how are we going to do it better. And then the other one, we were also challenged by the conference facility that we have in its current state. But I think that will be some learning points that we'll take forward. But majority of the exhibitors that came, 90% of them are Nigerian businesses, are Nigerian manufacturers, are Nigerian contractors who've been able to do things hitherto that we used to give to foreign contractors to do in this country. For instance, yesterday, a young man stood up during one of the discussion sessions and said, look, I have been able to manufacture a pipe that can alert you with words if there is any intrusion. Those are some of the things. And then we even saw some professors and doctors from Ahmadu Bello University also exhibiting modular refinery that they have fabricated in their institutions. So there were all those kind of things. But as far as I'm concerned, as the Executive Secretary of Local Content, there is a lot more that we would have brought to this international conference, because I've seen them. I've gone around this country, just like the former speaker said, and I have seen what Nigerians are doing. And by virtue of the Local Content Act, I can tell you that we have indeed moved the needle in terms of Nigerians taking responsibility in the oil and gas sector. And I think one thing again that came out for me at this conference is the discussion for Nigerians to see oil as a resource and not a commodity. Because for a very long time we've seen it as a commodity where we sell it and we get money out of it. But if you know the value add that you can bring out of a barrel of crude oil, it will blow your mind. When you talk about glycol, you talk about petrochemicals, you talk about all the derivatives that you will get out of a barrel of crude oil. I think that discussion came to the fore for the first time. And the way this conference was structured was based on themes. from day one to today, different themes where people focused on. Even yesterday, the Niger Delta discussion came into the fore, and governors were challenged to say, what are you doing as a chief executive to deal with those issues? You can as well put it on the lap of the federal government, but you have a role to play. And we saw most of them in terms of their strategy to help their states. So I think next time, I believe sincerely, if we remain consistent and focused, the exhibition will be a lot more robust and a lot more Nigerians will come and showcase what they have been doing in the past.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Wabota. Let's get the views of Engineer Rabiu.
Thank you very much. And like he said, actually, the challenge of the industry is not just getting the resources through monetary compensation of what you produce.
Okay.
Like he said, if you look at the GDP contribution of oil and gas, it's a little about 10%. But we are getting 95% of our foreign exchange earnings out of oil and gas. And therefore, whenever you are looking for dollar, you just have to go to oil and gas. So there's need for that diversification. But if you now consider oil and gas as a resource that can be used to expand the economy and impact other sectors of the economy, the result will be different.
Okay.
If you look at this room here, almost 75% to 80% of all the resources here, you can see all the equipment, the facilities here, have something to do with oil and gas.
That's right.
But almost everything was imported. And most of this thing can be done here. Just look at gas. In gas resources, if you use gas for domestic industrial development, you will see how you don't need to import fertilizer. You don't need to import any plastic. You don't need to import anything that you can do with petroleum products. You don't need to import methanol. You don't need to import a lot of other things that we are currently importing. So, and all that you need is just to make the gas used domestically and make it happen. And all it requires is the gas resources that we have. But we're actually clearing more than what we are actually using for the power sector.
Engineer Rabiu, in terms of also putting on show what we are capable of doing in the oil and gas industry, why did we appear to have lost sight of the opportunity of indeed bringing some of those who have taken advantage of the Local Content Act?
That's one of the problems. If you remember, Local Content Act only came in 2010. So
that's
it means
8 years ago.
For 50 years, we have been operating basically as an international company, as an international operation, where almost everything we use, in fact, sometimes before 1990s, we were actually importing food in the industry. So you can now see clearly, even though it is slow, but there's a lot of improvement. The power that we are producing today in Nigeria, before the last 5-6 years, how much can we produce? But if we can use the gas resources in Nigeria, we can get the gas required for the entire West African countries. These are the issues. But it requires three things. It requires the technology, the funding, and strategic partnership with those who know how to do it before. And that's why, like Simbi said, our collaboration with our sister countries who are coming through the same path is helping them now not to follow the same route. Because for 60 years, we are only at this level. Some of them have been here for only about 6-7 years, but they have gone very far. So a lot of things are being happening. And going forward, you see that Africa is the place to actually showcase the entire global economy today. Because Africa is where the growth is coming. If you look at global growth of about 3-4% this year, 2018, the main growth is coming from developing countries. And Africa will be contributing a lot of that. And therefore, a lot of energy will be required in Africa, a lot of resources will be required in Africa, a lot of people are being produced every day in Africa more than any other region of the world. And so the opportunities are still there. So it is not late, but the challenges are still there. But this collaboration, these interactions, these summits are some of the issues that are coming up to help us deliberate, discuss, and understand the issues and address them. I think that's one of the things that I think we have gotten out of this summit. People are frankly discussing about issues. We have National Assembly members discussing with the executive, understanding why PIB had not been passed from 2000 to date, 18 years. Within that period, we had the Ghana bringing their laws into pushing. Angola have changed their laws several times. A lot of countries have started producing oil and gas, and they have systems and processes in place through their legal system. We have to really stand up and see that we are not only the largest economy in Africa, but also the largest oil and gas province in the Africa region.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Rabiu Bello. Let's bring in Engineer Soyode, who is in Lagos. Let's see oil and gas as a resource, not as a commodity, but then as an industry that relies heavily on innovation and technology. How will Africa, or how is Africa and indeed Nigeria coping?
Well, oil and gas is both resource and commodity. We cannot run away from that. It is what you make of the resource part, how effectively you use the resource part. For example, they are talking of petrochemical and petrochemical consume less than 2% of oil and gas. Less than 2%. Okay? But even in Nigeria, our refineries from which the petrochemical feedstock will come are not functioning. So, to now say that you only look at it as just a resource, you are focused on the 2.5%. It is important because if you can build petrochemical plant, if you can maintain them here, you will create a lot of industries. All right. Look, I think the best thing to say is that government has done enough. Government has built a refinery. Government has put in place. Government should just stay away and be regulators and let the private sector drive the industry. If government, for example, will say local content, whatever you make, you must make in Nigeria, no excuse, and enforce it regularly. The IOCs will find a way. The Nigerian producer will find a way to use local things. The demand will rise because if they find that there is no going away. Let me take you an example. We built a carbon black plant at Warri in 1979. Carbon black is what you use in making tire. You know that plant is moribund until today. Michelin has since left Nigeria to go to Ghana. We built LAB plants in Kaduna. That is from which you make soap. Is moribund. LMA Petrochemical was built by NNPC. It was to be the precursor of all these petrochemicals that we are talking about. It was only after foreigners took it over that there is the grace of God that the thing is alive today. You see, the point is that government built, but government cannot maintain. So government should just stay as umpire, creator of employment. Nigeria working with other neighboring countries, we can create enough market. And when there is market, where is level playing? The private sector will come in. I think what I want the government to do now is to empower local content. Make the law that says nobody, you cannot, no matter how big you are, you cannot circumvent it. If you have to make in Nigeria, they will make it. Engineer Rabiu can say it. The oil companies will find a way to comply with the law because that's what they do in their country. They will comply in Nigeria. But when some politicians and so on will connive with the oil and give them ways and get waivers, that's why you have the mess we have now. That's why we have unemployment.
All right, Engineer Soyode, thank you very much. Let's also get the views of Engineer Ephraim Afonagoro on some of the points that have been articulated.
Yes, I'm with him. See, actually, you see, let me start from this point. When Nigerians want to talk about oil revenue, they will just say the amount of money, the price per barrel, and they multiply by, yes, by the quantity we are producing. And they forget one thing. You have to bring the oil from the ground to the surface. how much of the technology is resident in this country. They don't think about that. We just say oil is $100 per barrel, and we are making say, 20 million we sold for so and so. You multiply and you say, Central Bank, where's the money? You see? And they think the money is there. But we have to pay processing fees, we have to pay for the rig, we have to pay for the drilling mud, the chemical, everything, every scrap of equipment that is needed to bring this oil to the surface. So out of the so-called $100 per barrel, maybe only 20 will come to us. The rest is capital flights. You see, gone are the days when we are satisfied with, in NNPC for instance, in the old days, the refinery sector was the driving force because the other sectors were not very, very underdeveloped. So it was very competitive. Instead of building more plants, everybody was struggling to become head in that section. And they overgloated the system. Overseas, you don't have managing directors in a petrochemical plant, the refinery. You have a refinery manager. When Sheode was in Warri with us, he was our refinery manager. The highest position was general manager. But all this creation of Nigeria,
you have to be seen.
Yeah, everybody create a situation, create organogram, put all kinds of people in the position, and they forget their function. They forget the actual duty to run the refinery. How do you run a refinery? Refinery manager, he used to have a bicycle. He rides his bicycle through the process plant and observes what is happening. And we, at the time, were junior workers, we were senior staff, for that matter. We were always present in the plant. In fact, I put it this way. As a mechanical engineer, I understood the heartbeat of the plant. So I can walk through a process plant and I can dictate where there's a problem from a distance, and I head to that place. And I make my report and rectify it. That's what engineering is all about. You see, we love the almond, but we don't like the duty to break the shell. We have to come back. Now, the oil, this oil, has multiplying effect. Just to sell it as a commodity, you lose everything. And we have done that for years. We've lost the ability to convert it, convert the multiplying effect, and do other things. With this oil, we could have developed our roads, developed education, developed transportation. Everything will come out of this oil.
All right, Engineer Ofonagor, very important points that you have raised that we will speak to when we come back from this break. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we've been speaking to the issue of the ongoing Nigeria International Petroleum Summit and, of course, the challenges in the oil and gas industry. We'll be back in just a moment.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. Every day, 16,000 children under the ages of 5 and thousands of adults die from infectious diseases. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily. In unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilet, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 Cap Full for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid, to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure. Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
NTA Television College, Jos, an affiliate of Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, is organizing a 2-week course in broadcast media management techniques. The course will be facilitated by iconic media managers and administrators such as Dr. Tony O. Iradia, former DG, NTA. Date 5th to 16th March 2018. Course fee 100,000 naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. Also, a 4-week course in principles and practice of marketing. We hold from 19th March to 13th April 2018. Course fee 100,000 naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. Venue for both courses will be the NTA Television College, Rayfield, Jos. Both courses are specially designed to hone the skills of participants in the dynamic broadcast media space. The broadcast media management technique course targets participants from grade level 10 to 15 and shall deal with critical management functions that affect job performance. Principles and practice of marketing course has been packaged to help participants acquire relevant knowledge and skills in all aspects of digital marketing, public relations, market research, strategies, and management. For further enquiries, contact 0806 908 9807, 0703 660 7155, or email ntacollege@gmail.com. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We have a lot of reactions already from our viewers by way of tweets, and of course you can take advantage of the Twitter handle. You can see it there on the screen at NTAGMA. We'll take some of those tweets now, and then we'll go back to our guests. Abdul Musa has a tweet, and it says, I hope the summit examined the reasons why our refineries remain comatose, and also made efforts to proffer immediate and long-term solutions to this precarious situation. We can no longer accept flimsy excuses for the perennial fuel scarcity in the country.
Festus Akimbo Iwatwit, it says Nigeria's International Petroleum Summit is a product of strategic thinking aimed at addressing the legacy of underinvestment in our petroleum and gas industry. I hope the summit will translate to huge investment in the industry.
Dele Jack Solomon, the summit was long overdue. At the end of it, there is need for the issuance of action points for current and potential African oil and gas countries that will translate into better collaboration and development of our countries while opening other opportunities for the continent.
Cecilia Koromatwe, she says liberalization of the oil and gas industry will boost our economy. Can we give the Nigerian industrialists opportunity to improve our worth?
Dele Jack Solomon again. The International Oil Summit's resolutions should help Nigeria produce oil and gas at a cheaper cost, diversify the processing of our oil, internalizing and externalizing investment in the sector, while also capturing the requisite technological skills that are essential to help us operate efficiently.
And this is the last one, is from Habila Kwara Zachi. He says the summit can be successful only if it can bring solutions to the numerous problems ravaging our oil sector and our economy at large. I'm scared that it might be the usual gathering of elites for their interest. Those are
not exactly the last tweets. Okay. We have another set of tweets, actually.
Okay.
This one, if you check, you have a set of tweets. Dahiru Abubakar begins this tweet. It says, Kingsley, I think your guests have not answered your question on why now properly. Now, the reason is because this is the first time the minister or government is thinking of the country and not being selfish.
And Emmanuel George tweets, it says the challenges in oil and gas sector can only be viable if the government of the day stops political programmers, put the right people in the right place. We'll see how Nigeria grows.
Sani Michael Amakoji tweets, 60 years, excuse me, 60 years after we joined the oil club, and we are still staggering in the oil and gas sector in which we have the needed human resources, it shows that something is wrong with our system, and this has to change.
And Cecilia Koroma tweets again. She says, painful to me is the foot dragging of government, not encouraging local oil investors who will employ youths and curb restiveness.
Mogbola Babs tweets, the success or efficacy of this type of summit is determined by its impact on the ordinary citizens of the host country. So those are the two sets of tweets that we have. In the meantime, we'll come back to the tweets later in the course of the conversation. Let's bring in Engineer Rabiu again. Engineer Rabiu, in terms of the objectives, What have been the dominant sentiments arising from the interactions between the global oil players, that's to say the attendees at the summit, and policy makers?
Thank you very much. I think it's also a very interesting interaction. The international players prefer to have a stable investment environment, and they show under this summit that they have started getting that confidence. The single most important problem facing the industry as far as they are concerned was the security situation. Okay. That had actually been addressed tremendously. As far as the country is concerned, and the investors also, we think we have done a lot to address the issue of security, because before 2014, 2015, the production came down as low as 1.3 million barrels per day. As at yesterday, we were producing 2.25 million barrels every day. So you can see that is what investor wanted. He wanted to have a stable operation environment where he will get his money and securely produce his oil and take it away. The second important problem was the funding issues. You remember the time of cash call arrears, the time when we could not pay our own part, because government is a significant player in the industry. And I think, like Engineer Shode said, there is need for government to move away from the industry, but that is also has some implication. There are some areas that, of course, a lot of people can do, but there are areas also that not every local player can do. But in the upstream section, almost the entire investment is between government and international players. So they also wanted that confidence that if they invested $1, and I'm supposed to bring my own $1.50, I should also bring that one. That also had been addressed, and in the last 1 year, for the first time in the history of this country, we had a complete year of operation without any cash call arrears. So everybody that was investing his money, he also getting his own counterpart funding from government. That was what we call the cash call exit situation, and that had been achieved. That has even given them some boost and some confidence that the industry is now working. And once we actually start talking about connecting the industry now with the economy, and that if you look at most of the tweets, that's the key issue. On what do we need to do to ensure that the industry help in creating employment? The industry help in making things happen in Nigeria. How do we do all these things to ensure that the in-country capacity, the in-country activities is what is moving the industry, not outside. We need the money from outside, but we also need the employment generation from here. We need to have imports. We need to do everything here. And once that happens, you see the difference.
Yeah, well, you talked about two issues yes. that have been dominant in terms of the sentiments of participants. The first one has to do with the security situation. The second one has to do with funding, and then, of course, the government having dealt with the menace of cash calls. How much of an excitement has there been with regard to the passage of one of the series of pieces of legislation regarding the oil and gas industry, namely the PIGB? And
that is the third issue, actually. They also are interested in getting stable fiscal regimes. They wanted to know how is government going to conclude this issue so they can actually invest. If you see what has happened in the last, you can say 18 years now, from 2010, from 2002, 2003 to date, we have been working on the PIB. But what has happened now is that we are trying to divide it into 4 sections to ensure that it is actually passed and it becomes the norm and the regulation for making the industry work. The fiscal system is what share the revenue between the government or the host government and the investors. As far as Nigeria is concerned, they believe it's still hazy because it has not been passed. Yeah. So they don't know what will happen. And therefore, making that happen is key. And from this conference, we got assurance from the National Assembly that they believe before the end of the second quarter of this year, even the fiscal part will be passed. The governance has been passed, which is the one that will actually strengthen the institutions, make the regulations happen, and then understand who will do what. That has been passed at the 2 different houses, but they are to sit down together, agree on the format that will be given to the president for asset. After that, the fiscal will come, which will share the revenue between the host country and the investors. Then the third one will be the community engagement. That also is extremely important. Then the last one is the administration of the blocks. How the license will be given, how transparent it should be done, and how everybody will know the level playing field that is being put in place.
All right, Engineer Waboto, let's also get your impression of some of the concerns or excitement being expressed by the global players in their interaction with policymakers or policy implementers?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think Rabiu has mentioned two of those issues, and perhaps usually in any investment outlook and decisions, when you solve one problem, it takes the back seat, and then the most dominant problem then becomes the number one. Yeah. From what I got out of the discussion yesterday, and from my experience of 25 years in the oil and gas sector, perhaps the number one now, haven't dealt with some of the security challenges, haven't dealt with the funding. The number one is the uncertainty and the legislation that has been in this swing for a very long time. Now even broken into various parts, and perhaps also creating its own complication in terms of understanding by the potential investors in itself. So I will rank it number one, knowing that we have dealt with two of those that took a dominant position. And if we don't make haste in addressing it, we will come back here next year and we'll still be discussing it. The other bit is about the contractors who execute activities in country. Their greatest worry is also inability of us taking final investment decisions in some of the projects from the discussions. Today, Egina, which we celebrate in terms of the local content feat we have achieved as a result of that project, where we are, for the first time, having some part of it integrated in country. By July this year, that vessel will probably sail out to deep offshore. And then the question all investors, both contractors and the international investors are asking, where is the next project? And if we don't take final investment decisions on those projects, for instance, Zabazaba, Bonga Southwest, and the likes, what will we do with all this capacity we've been able to develop in country? Today we are fabricating 60,000 metric tons per annum in the oil and gas industry. If work don't come through those fabrication yards, we will again put about 25,000 welders out of job. So their concern is, what next? Most of them also came to the summit hoping that they will hear big announcements of FIDs that will come through the system. The other bit about sustaining the security situation we've been able to deal with, particularly in the Niger Delta, is putting through activities. Because let me be frank, if you don't get these youths engaged through activities that you throughput into the oil and gas industry, when the projects go out, we are going to have the same situation again. Maybe also going back to address the point Engineer Shoede raised. I think it's important to understand that we are not saying you should treat it as resource alone. You must treat it as commodity and resource. Just by the example he gave, the spin-off effect, if the statistics is correct, of that 2% is perhaps greater than focusing only in the oil upstream sector and treating oil and gas as a resource in terms of GDP contribution. And the other challenge I think I saw in the discussion was the inability of government institutions. I make bold to say that as the Executive Secretary of NCDMB, I see the international companies doing everything they can to want to comply with the law. The greatest area I have my challenge is getting government institutions to also comply with the local content law. It is an uphill battle that I have been struggling with.
How do you mean?
What I mean is, when you have, there are government institutions, NPDC, NMPC, and all those institutions also coming together. Don't forget, local content was a creation of NMPC. They started it. And when it domiciled in NMPC, we achieved a lot through that process. But today, when you look at other sectors of the economy, ICT, power, construction, we don't have as much traction in those areas. That's why we are glad with the Executive Order 005 that has been signed into law. But let me tell you my greatest fear. Nigeria as a country, or Africa as a country, as a continent, we are always doing catch-up. What is coming in the oil and gas industry today is artificial intelligence, robotics. Here we are building capacity to be able to catch up with yesterday's technology. The world is moving on. That's why I'm particularly excited with the Executive Order 005, particularly in the ICT sector. How do we begin to prepare ourselves for artificial intelligence that will hit us in no distant future? How do we prepare ourselves against robotics that will become the order of the day in the next coming years? And how do we also use data as the next resource that all nations are trying to tap from? So for me, that is the greatest worry, and that's why in this conference, some of those discussions came to the fore to say, how do we deal with those issues? How do we begin to look beyond what we have today? Because we will catch up, and the next minute, some of our platforms, I can bet you in the next 10 years, will have nobody manning them because of artificial intelligence and robotics. How do we prepare ourselves towards those kind of challenges? And I think for me, I got that out of this workshop itself. So moving up the food chain, the greatest challenge now the investors are having is the uncertainty concerning the petroleum industry bill.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Wabota. Let's bring in Engineer Soyede. You've listened to Engineer Wabota. The petroleum industry, some people have said that has been the bane of attracting investors into the oil and gas industry. And if enabling environment is not there for them to come, all of this exercise will be in futility.
Well, I think this is all much ado about nothing. Look, and I think Engineer Bello and Simbi can probably correct him if I'm wrong. Out of the money realized on a barrel of crude oil, between 80 to 85% of it comes to government anyway as tax. So remaining only 15%. Why are we going to destroy our 85% just because of our greed to want to take more of the 15%? It doesn't make sense. Between a tax, royalties and so on, government takes most of the money anyway. You know, in Indonesia and some other countries, government does not put kobo. They tell the oil company, whether they are local law or international, go and invest, pay us our tax and so on. We just create the level playing ground for you. So why are we wasting all this time? Engineer Bello can correct if I'm wrong. What is going to increase the life of our young men and women is local content. Whatever money you are going to spend, most of it must be spent in Nigeria. Listen to what Simbi said. If Egina will finish manufacturing it and we don't approve other projects, those facilities will shut down. 25,000 welders out of job. Now, is it what all this debate about PIB? So I think we need to look at issues very, very squarely. To me, PIB is just how to share money between government. It's really not, it has really not to do with the oil and gas industry difficulty at all.
Still with you, and also drawing from your experience in the downstream sector, which you referred to and which was also emphasized by Engineer Fonagoro here in the Abuja studios. And of course, now your current engagement with Dangote, who has become, you know, a player in the downstream sector with the Dangote refinery in the Lagos area. I'm wondering, considering the brevity of time that you spent at the summit, which is winding up today, did you find any indication of the downstream sector being perhaps of serious concern or serious engagement to the participants? And depending on what your answer is, what would be your suggestion in terms of focusing on opportunities and challenges, or challenges and opportunities in the downstream sector, considering, of course, how much problems that the economy continues to suffer on account of the porous nature of our downstream sector?
Well, the conference, in fact, from its title, was really supposed to focus on the downstream, because you are talking, we are translating abundance of production of oil to reliability of supply and demand of products. But I don't think enough focus was put on the downstream. Our session was quite interesting and was very lively, you know, but it wasn't. But it really doesn't matter. I think we are beginning to shine light on the downstream. You know, again, look at the downstream. People are now talking of modular refinery, even though they don't understand what they are talking about when they talk of modular refinery. Because there is no such thing as modular refinery. No such thing. You have mini refinery, you have all kinds of, but no modular refinery. Look at that. Here we have 440,000 barrels, 45,000 barrels a day lying fallow. And we are now talking of small, little tin can refinery, 5 to 10,000 barrels to solve our problem. We must be a crazy nation. We must be a crazy nation. I told the governor, the deputy governor of Delta State yesterday, he said they are going to build 4 modular refineries, each 10,000 barrels a day. I said, look, what are you talking about? In Warri, you have 125,000 barrels a day capacity. Why don't you negotiate with government and NNPC to revitalize that, upgrade it? It will more than solve your problem and maybe help the nation. You see, we look at what we have, we don't treasure it. Ofunagoro and I and others like him were in Warri. We didn't have problems. Warri Refinery was being upgraded and maintained by graduates of PTI. Ofunagoro and his guy, we had no problem that we couldn't solve. So, and even this NNPC refinery that people say no go, they are good. They can be upgraded. They can be upgraded and expanded. They are the best located refineries in Nigeria today. But government should leave NNPC alone. Let NNPC find private sector funders. Government should remove subsidy, create a level where the refineries will work and can work. The refinery will work and can work.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, as a consultant for the Dangote refinery, I was going to ask you, is the Dangote refinery preparing for what Engineer Wabota said earlier, and that's the next level of the oil and gas, that is artificial intelligence, robotics, and of course the issue of data?
You know, Dangote is always operating at the front end of technology. Whatever is the leading technology in our area, that is what they adopt. For example, Ofunagoro can testify to this. I can actually control the refinery from where I am now, from my iPad. I can now. These are the kind of technology that we have now. So Dangote invests in leading technologies. So this is what we do. And I think it's right. We should not focus, we should not dwell much on the current, and we look for, let us solve the problem now. If, for example, you spend money on subsidy and your educational system is rotting, does that make sense? How do you acquire artificial intelligence? From dilapidated universities? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
So let's bring in Engineer Ofunagoro now with regard to the downstream sector. What is your take? What would you like to see in terms of interaction between global players and, shall we say, local potential investors and local players as well?
Thank you very much. Oil industry, petroleum, refining industry, all those things are not government functions. I don't see anywhere in the world where government runs a refinery. So to buttress Engineer Siode's point, government should hands off and allow the private sector and entrepreneurs to run the industry. And that's the only way we can get the maximum derivable benefits from this industry, which can spin off to other sectors of the economy. Okay. So let me add one thing. You see, when government takes charge of the refineries, for instance, and then collects all the money and gives you nothing to run, how do you expect continuity? Refinery is not a batch process. It's a it runs continuously. So if you, just like the FPFO that have been fabricated outside, and most of the components will be added locally. If they finish that job and the workers are laid off, they don't have continuity. You have to go. It takes more than 2 years to run a small project in this country. Talk less a big project like the Bonga and the FPFOs. See, so we need to get to a point where we come to realization that this is not a government business. Okay. We don't need to debate, go to president to get approval to buy a process pump.
All right, Engineer Funagar, thank you very much. We're indeed winding down on the program now, but we'll take some tweets and then we get your closing thoughts. The first tweet is from Joseph David. Says the International Petroleum Summit will make a great impact only if the participants from Nigeria would come back and put into practice knowledge gained to make Nigeria to be self-sufficient in petroleum products.
Mike Ayankwa has this tweet. We don't need any summit to achieve whatever we want to achieve as a petroleum-producing nation. What we really need is sincerity and uprightness. We must stop deceiving ourselves and start thinking on what we can do for our nation and not what the nation will do for us. And
this one is from Shakiru. Shakiru says, Nigerians must love Nigeria more than ourselves. We're not in a government. We say the truth. We say how things should be done. But when we come to government, we become powerless, or we act powerless.
All right, those are the tweets that we have, the set of tweets, rather, that we have from our viewers. I just wanted to ask Engineer Bello Rabiu, this is the maiden Nigeria International Petroleum Summit. What is projected as the frequency of the summit? How frequently will it be held?
The plan is to make it a national event, and we want to do it every February of the year. So the intention is that by the end of today, when we conclude the session, we will summarize the instructions and the recommendations, publish it, make it happen, and then let it be like a benchmark for the future summit. We believe by next year, when we come to discuss other issues, we'll now see what has happened on these issues. Like the promise of the National Assembly that by the end of second quarter this year, we get all the bills passed. If next year, by this time, we're doing another summit, we'll see whether or not that has been passed. You can see as part of the issues is one of the things that we have discussed.
All right, there's a tweet, just before we sign off the guest, Rhoda, there's a tweet there exhorting Nigerian participants at the summit to actually leave the summit with lasting takeaway lessons. Is this likely to be the case? So that we are seeing new African members of the oil club. We have heard the story of what palm oil has done, palm kernel and palm oil between Nigeria and Malaysia, and several other examples. Engineer Wabote, what's your take on this?
I think, just like Bello Rabiu said, I believe that after this summit, we are going to have an after-action review, and we are going to crystallize the quick takeaways in terms of the responsibility of each
all right, Engineer Wabote, I would actually like to cut you there. We're having a challenge with your microphone. But then would love to just on that note say a very big thank you to all of our guests who have joined us today on the program. First of all, I'd like to thank Engineer Bello Rambi is the Chief Operating Officer of the upstream sector of the NNPC. Thank you for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. And also a very big thank you to you, Simbi Wabote, Executive Secretary, Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board. Thank you, Mr. Wabote, for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. And also, I would like to thank Engineer Ephraim Ihanachukwu Ofonagoro. He is the Chairman CEO of Tesco Nigeria Limited. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you.
And finally, a very, very big thank you to Engineer Babajide Akinremi Shoyode. He is the Chairman Pro Data Management Company and Managing Director of the Free Zone Plan of Fabrication Company, a consultant to the Dangote Refinery. Thank you for your thoughts and time on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you. All right, so that does it for our discussion segment. Let's go over now to our sports desk.
The Super Falcons of Nigeria waited